Hi friends, welcome to our YouTube channel Knowledge Academy. The meaning of this lecture is to discuss about the TSPSC General Studies questions, which are the previous year questions in a very detailed manner. If you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon button. So whenever we upload a new video, the direct notification comes to your mobile. If any improvements needed in our lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. So why to waste more time? So let's get started. So now we are going to solve the 11th question. See the question here. A judge of the Supreme Court may be removed on the ground of. So a judge of the Supreme Court may be removed on the ground of. Option A, bad judgment. Option B, supporting a public cause. Option C, proved misbehavior or incapacity. Option D, on the pleasure of the president. So what are the four options? Option C, proved misbehavior or incapacity. So let's discuss something more facts about this one. See, the removal of a judge of a Supreme Court is given in the Article 144D. See, Article 144D is going to tell you the manner in which a Supreme Court judge can be removed. Here it is going to tell that the Article 124D is going to say like this, which is the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha. The votes in the Lok Sabha has to be greater than 2/3, and the votes in the Rajya Sabha has to be greater than 2/3. See, the majority of the votes has to be given, and then it is sent by the president. Then it is sent to the president. So therefore now the president is going to give an approval for this. Means the judge of the Supreme Court can be removed for his misbehavior or incapacity. So the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha must get a majority of votes, then that bill is going to send to the president, then he is going to approve. So therefore this is the standard procedure. By this a Supreme Court judge can be removed. This is given in the Article 144D. So let's discuss something more facts about this Supreme Court. Supreme Court was established on the 1st October 1937, and the location of the Supreme Court is present in the Tilak Marg, which is present in the New Delhi, and the motto of the Supreme Court is, where there is righteousness, there is victory. This is the motto of the Supreme Court. And the present Chief Justice of India is Sharad Arvind Bode. Is the present Chief Justice of India. He is from this post from the 18th November 2019. And the retirement age of this Supreme Court judges are 65 years, and the salary is going to get the 2.8 lakhs per month. And presently there are 34 judges which are present in the Supreme Court. And in the question, in the examinations, they can ask, who is the first lady judge of the Supreme Court of India? So who is the first lady judge of Supreme Court of India? She is Fatima Bibi. Fatima Bibi is the first lady judge of Supreme Court of India, and she was appointed on the date of 6th October 1987. So here finally what I am trying to say is, here the Supreme Court judge can be removed from the Article 124D is going to say that in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, we must get the majority of votes, and then it has to be approved by the president. Only under the proper reason. Only under the proper reason the Supreme Court judge can be removed for his misbehavior or the incapacity to hold that chair. So this is some of the important facts of the removing of the Supreme Court judge. We are going to solve the 12th question. See the question here. Education in India is in option A, state list. Option B, union list. Option C, concurrent list. Option D, residuary list. So what are the four options? Option C, concurrent list. So education in India is in the concurrent list. So now we'll discuss some of the important facts here. See, the seventh schedule of the Indian Constitution is going to tell you the division of the power between the state government and the central government. So the seventh schedule of the Indian Constitution is going to tell you about the division of the power between the central government and the state government. See, this in the seventh schedule we are going to have three lists, which are the union list, state list and the concurrent list. So therefore this union list has only those subjects which are of national importance. So only the central government or the parliament can make the laws on it. So the union list is nothing but, in this there are the subjects of the national importance. Only the central government or the parliament can make the laws on it. Example, defense, banking, currency, communication, foreign affairs. These are the few examples. But in the union list there are total 100 subjects. Means like this there are 100 subjects. So out of this only I have discussed only few examples. So therefore this union list consists of only 100 subjects, means or 100 items. All from in these 100 subjects only the central government or the parliament can make the laws. So in this all the subjects a state government cannot interfere. But for the state list, so the second is the state list. This state list has those subjects which are only for the local importance. So only the state government or the state legislation can make the laws on it. So some of the few examples are police, trade, commerce, agriculture. So in the state list there are actually 61 subjects or the 61 items. So on all these 61 items only the state government can make laws on it. So these are the few examples. Now let's come for the concurrent list. So for this concurrent list, in this it has subjects which are the importance of the national and also the state. So this is going to make so the central government and the state government can make the laws on it. So some of the few examples are education, forest, adoption, marriage. So in the question they asked education is in which list? So education is in the concurrent list. So finally in this concurrent list actually there are 47 subjects. So out of these 47 subjects I have discussed only few examples. So from these 47 subjects, for these 47 subjects, the state government and the central government can make the laws on this one. So finally, the 7th schedule is going to make the division of the power between the central government and the state government. So for the union list, only central government can make the laws, and for the state list, only the state government can make the laws, and for the concurrent list, both the state government and central government can make the laws. So in the union list, there are total 100 subjects or 100 items, and for the state list, there are total 61 subjects or 61 items, and for the concurrent list, there are total 47 subjects or 47 items. So education is present in the concurrent list, means for the education, both the central government and also state government can make the laws. So finally what I am trying to say is, so central government and the state government. So now the division of the power between the central government and the state government. So central government can make the laws purely on the union government and the union list, and the state government can make laws on the state list. But for the concurrent list, both the central government and also state government can make the laws. So this is the Venn diagram. So by this diagram we can easily tell that the central government can purely make laws on union list, and the state government can make purely laws on the state list. But for the concurrent list, both the central government and the state government can make the laws. So now we are going to solve the 13th question. See the question here. Who chaired the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly? Option A, Vallabhbhai Patil. Option B, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Option C, Sachinananda Sinha. Option D, Jawaharlal Nehru. So what are the four options? Option C, Sachinananda Sinha is the first person who chaired the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly. So let's discuss something more facts about this one. So now we'll discuss some of the important facts of the Dr. Sachinananda Sinha. So Dr. Sachinananda Sinha is basically an Indian lawyer of the Supreme Court, and he was a journalist, and he belongs to the Indian National Congress Party. So if you see carefully, on the 9th December 1946, he was elected as a temporary president of the Constituent Assembly. So therefore, he is the first person who is chaired the Constituent Assembly. But on the 11th December 1946, only 2 days after this one, only 2 days after the 9th December 1946, there is an election. So on this election, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of the Constituent Assembly. So therefore, we can conclude that the temporary president of the Constituent Assembly is the first person who chaired this Constituent Assembly is that Dr. Sachinananda Sinha. After him, there is elections has happened. From this election, the result is Dr. Rajendra Prasad became the president of the Constituent Assembly. So Dr. Sachinananda Sinha was the first person who was the president of the Constituent Assembly. So now we are going to solve the 14th question. See the question here. In which year the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act was passed? Option A 1976, option B 1977, option C 1978, and option D 1979. So what are the four options? Option A 1976. On the year 1976, the Bonded Labor System Abolition Act was passed. So let's discuss something more facts about this one. I will discuss some of the important facts of the forced labor or the bonded labor. So the meaning of the forced labor or bonded labor is called as a working against his will for free. Means he has to work for free against his will. That is the true meaning of the forced labor or the bonded labor. So initially what is happening is, suppose there is a person, suppose he has taken a loan of some 5 lakhs. Let us assume he has taken some loan from this person. So he has taken some money from this big person. So this person has given a 5 lakhs rupees for this person. Suppose he was dead. So he was died. So he is not paid this 5 lakhs rupees. So therefore his son has to work for him. So therefore his son has to work under this person until this amount is paid, and also the interest also has to be paid. So therefore he has to pay, this son has to work for this big person until his loan and also interest. So he has to work for free until his loan and the interest is paid. So this is the true meaning of the forced labor, means his child also has to work for this person until his loan and the interest is paid. So therefore this is called as a forced labor or the bonded labor. So therefore he has to work against his will under this person until his loan and the interest is paid. So here in 1976 this was abolished, means the bonded labor or the forced labor abolition act was passed. So therefore from 1976 this was removed. So therefore if you do this presently, if you do this bonded labor for any person, then you are going to get a jail of 3 years and a fine of 2000 rupees is going to pay. Suppose if you are going to make this happen, means if you do this for any person, so you have to go for a jail of 3 years and a fine of 2000 rupees. So article 23 is going to say that prohibition of traffic in human being and also the forced labor, means article 23 will tell you about the trafficking in human being and also the forced labor. So therefore forced labor must be stopped. So therefore in 1976 they have passed a law which is the Bonded Labor Abolition Act. So therefore this was totally eliminated from the society. So in the year 1976, in the question they asked in which year the Bonded Labor Abolition Act was passed, means in the 1976. So therefore this total uncultural thing was totally removed from the society. So now we are going to solve the 15th question. See the question here. Who is the chairman of the 14th Finance Commission? Who is the chairman of the 14th Finance Commission? Option A, C. Rangarajan. Option B, Y.V. Reddy. Option C, Montek Singh. Option D, Raghuram Rajan. So what are the four options? Option B, Y.V. Reddy is the chairman of the 14th Commission. Let's discuss something more facts about the Y.V. Reddy. So now we'll discuss some of the important facts of the Finance Commission. So it was established in the 22nd November 1951 by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and the headquarters of the Finance Commission is present in the New Delhi. So the main agenda of the Finance Commission is going to give the finance relations suggestions for the central government and the state government. So here the Finance Commission and the chairman. For the 13th Finance Commission, the chairman was Vijay Kelkar from the 2010 to 2015, and for the 14th Finance Commission, the chairman was Y.V. Reddy from 2015 to 2020. And similarly, for the 15th Finance Commission, the chairman is N.K. Singh from 2020 to 2025. And N.K. Singh was basically an IAS officer and also is a former member of the Planning Commission. So in the question they asked for the 14th Finance Commission, the chairman was Y.V. Reddy. So there is a high probability to ask for the 15th Finance Commission. So for the 15th Finance Commission, the present chairman is N.K. Singh from 2020 to 2025, was basically an IAS officer and a former member of the Planning Commission. So by this lecture, we have successfully completed the 15 questions which are the previous year TSPSC General Studies questions in a very detailed manner. If you like the content of our channel, then please do like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon button. So whenever we upload a new video, the direct notifications comes to mobile. If any improvements needed in our lectures, then please do comment in the comment section. We will definitely include all those improvements in the coming lectures. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. Keep smiling, take care and bye bye.